Welcome to Gardening Through Art. I'm Elise of Joyful Plant. I help artists craft sustaining brands with my Gardening Through Art method. Let's begin. Plants are teachers. They are symbolic of their environment. Working with these forms allows our imagination to connect to the environment. Through this process, we can learn directly from the plants. The knowledge we gain will relate to our personal lives. This is part of the essence of herbalism and is understood by botanical artists. Today, we are using watercolors and our observation to create a picture of a peony. Our materials are watercolor pigments, a brush, watercolor paper, and a paper towel. Our subject today is a peony, and there are exciting things about it. We're going to notice it open-mindedly. We will take in sensory information and get to know it better. Then we'll take that experience to recreate that form in our imagination. Then we are going to take that feeling to recreate that form through art. We can explore repeating that process of reflecting and projecting. With a small amount of cut flowers, we can wet a brush and add some pigment. We use our simple brush strokes to sketch the petals. We take in information and then use our imagination to see where this plant came from. What was its journey in evolution like 100 years ago, and where will it be 100 years from now? It is on a journey. Where is that leading, and how does that journey relate to my journey? You can consider everything you can think of and be very open-minded because you know that it has gathered a lot of information that can help you in your life. If it exists now, then it is a survivor, like we are. You can use this imagination to inform your process and be very loose about your interpretation. Simple brush strokes create forms that allude to flower petals. It does not need to be perfect or even like anybody else would create it. You can use different pigments or different amounts for the various colors. A nice round quill brush can help the artist interpret the information and render it on the page. Even if you try, this will probably not ever be done the same way twice. You might add more pigment as it dries, creating a depth. Imagine where the light's coming from and how that shows just exactly how the petals were arranged inside the bud of the flower. And in what form do they relate to one another? You might have some that are less pigmented, so you can start with less of a depth and be open and interpretive. You can always pick up pigment with a paper towel to create the form you'd like. A peony has a lot of different shapes that create its petals. And there are diagrams. My peonies are often buzzing with bees. We can think about, what does the bee notice about a flower? Be really loose in your interpretation. It doesn't have to be the exact form. You can immortalize the plants in your garden to become part of your personal brand. And you can choose how much depth you add and how many layers of pigments in order to achieve a certain look. Using high quality artist pigments and cold press watercolor paper allows a lot of flexibility in picking up color after it has partially dried on the paper. It can be fun to use loose floral watercolor as a meditative tool. You can use a little bit of pressure or a lot of pressure with the brush in order to achieve these shapes. And we study the elements of art to understand how to add more interest to our art pieces. We use value in watercolor to show depth and sunlight. So if you like the process, and when you look back at your piece, you will enjoy the product. It doesn't have to be labeled as good or bad. It can just be fun. And try not to quit even if you don't like how it's turning out. It's about the process, and it's important to embrace the awkward parts of a creative process and work through them. Rather than self-judgment, allow it to be a form of self-expression. So give yourself some grace. You can add a couple blooms of water if you like to have some expressive variety in your piece. And if you want to get really wild, which we do, we might add just a little bit of splatter. We'll always wash our hands after this, as artist grade pigments are absolutely not edible. We'll add a little bit of each of the colors just for fun. So there are lots of different ways that we can use effects like splattering or picking up paint with an absorbent item, or sometimes people like to put bits of salt or string on the paint as it dries for various textures. I encourage you to play with that as you find your style. And as an artist, your style can always change and adapt. Back up and look at it and see if you feel okay with its state. Peonies are such fun flowers as they are in bush form. They come back every year, and it's astounding to see the amount of growth that they take on in a small amount of time, and the significance of their unique, elegant beauty is so charming. It's really breathtaking. Connecting observation and imagination to nature in a way that is different allows our minds to accept the environment. That is the joyful plant. All the plants are trying to do something positive. When we allow them to do that, there's a feeling of joy. Why is art so important in understanding the world? Dr. Maria Montessori said, "The human hand, so delicate and so complicated, not only allows the mind to reveal itself, but it enables the whole being to enter into special relationships with the environment." Man takes possession of his environment with his hands. His hands, under the guidance of the intellect, transform this environment and thus enable to him to fulfill his mission in the world. We took a simple idea of observation with the intention to see the purpose and the value of making art, to become receptive to the limitless information about wellness and balance that nature provides. I hope you enjoyed the process, and feel free to share your results on Instagram with the hashtag #GardeningThroughArt. I'm Elise of Joyful Plant, and thank you for watching Gardening Through Art.